Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. Awesome Monday. Do we have some news to discuss? The sports world has been shaken. Someone has a microphone on that I can hear in my ear. They're talking to me. So if we could quiet that down, I'd appreciate it. But wow. What an incredible weekend of sports news with just one news story. The Dallas Mavericks have traded Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers for some reason. The Dallas Mavericks, hey, whoever's mic is on, I can still hear it. I can hear them typing. Anyway, the Dallas Mavericks have traded Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis. A 25-year-old superstar in Luka Doncic in his prime traded for Anthony Davis, a 31-year-old aging superstar who's injury-prone. It doesn't make sense. And that's why you need this show, because I'm going to make sense of it over the course of the next hour, 90 minutes. I don't know how long it's going to take, because myself and Steve Kim are going to break this down. And now I'm hearing myself in my earpiece. Wow. Anyway, hopefully that will improve. Steve, let me bring up, I think Steve Kim's already with us. Let me bring up Steve Kim and just, Steve, before I start unpacking all of this, I just want your just initial take, and then you got to sit back and listen to me for about 5-7 minutes, and I'll bring you back. But when you heard Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis, what did you think?
Well, the first thing I did, I went onto that account that tweeted it from Shams to make sure it was the real one. And when I saw 2.5 M on the number of followers, I was kind of in shock. I literally heard this right after the Benavidez-Morel fight. And all I got to say is one thing as a Laker fan. We just get rid of one more guy. I'm kind of back on board. That's the initial reaction.
Okay, so take Steve off camera, because I'm going to take a dump on the Lakers. You know what? Steve's so used to being pandered to as a Lakers fan that he thinks this is all on the up and up. Today, I'm going to help Steve understand this isn't all on the up and up. It involves gambling. It involves Las Vegas. It involves the NBA always taking care of the Lakers. And let's just start there with the NBA taking care of the Lakers and how the credibility of the NBA is being really undermined by this latest move. We got to go. 1969, Wilt Chamberlain ends up a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. Fine, makes sense. At that time in 1969, how many NBA teams were there? 10, 12, 15? I don't know. Not a great number. Hey, Wilt Chamberlain ends up a Laker. Great, no problem. 7 years later, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ends up a Los Angeles Laker. They get him from the Milwaukee Bucks. They sent Junior Bridgman and Brian Waters. Kareem ends up, the all-time leading scorer, one of the greatest players of ever, ends up a Los Angeles Laker. Do me a favor and cut Steve's mic until I call for him. In 1997, 21 years later, hey, Shaquille O'Neal, free agent, or once out of Orlando. Orlando won't pay him. He ends up a Los Angeles Laker. Wilt, Kareem, and Shaq all end up Los Angeles Lakers. Hey, Kobe needs a post player so he can win titles without Shaq. Hey, you know what? Out of nowhere, Jerry West, I believe, sends Pau Gasol, I believe from Memphis, to the Los Angeles Lakers for Kwame Brown and Mark Gasol. What a coincidence. 2019, LeBron James ends up a Los Angeles Laker. He just decides he wants to spend the remainder of his career in Los Angeles. The big LeBron James Hollywood experiment, 2019. And now, 6 years later, with LeBron on his last legs, with Bronny James far from being a franchise player, Luka Doncic, one of the 3 or 4 best players in the NBA, perhaps arguably the greatest scorer in the NBA right now, he ends up a Los Angeles Laker at age 25. what did they say? The guys made 5 first-team All-NBA teams at just age 25, and he gets Anthony Davis, 31 years old, at the end of his career. The NBA has a credibility problem as it relates to feeding the Los Angeles Lakers generational talent year after year after year. I know people out in LA like Steve Kim that are huge Lakers fans think this is, of course, feed the Lakers. We need this out in Los Angeles. We don't care about the rest of the NBA. People like Steve Kim think this is normal, par for the course. I think this is a final straw for NBA fans and sports fans to say, hey, man, this makes no sense. Steve, welcome back. I just want to start there. The feeding of the Lakers and how it undermines the credibility of the entire league. Agree or disagree?
Okay, before I was rudely cut off from my own show here on this fine Monday, I didn't get off this point. I think there's a great risk here. And by the way, those trades that you mentioned, okay, a couple of them were lopsided. By the way, Marc Gasol made all-star teams. He won awards, okay? Shaq O'Neal was a free agent. He was never signing with Orlando, okay? Jerry West had to gut the franchise in that roster to bring him on in the summer of 1996. Do I think that there's an issue? Yes. Is there a question of credibility and the balance of the league? Yes. But Mr. Whitlock, it's just maddening how you conveniently leave off what happened in 2011 when the Lakers wanted to just add a point guard. And David Stern, great commissioner, I didn't agree with him here, vetoed the trade. So what do you have to say to that situation? What is your rebuttal to that?
One time, David Stern said, hey, you know what? This isn't worth the hassle. This is Chris Paul. Nice player, but the blowback we'll get for feeding the Lakers this time a nice player, a 6'2" point guard, it's just not worth it. But for LeBron James, Paul Gasol, Shaquille O'Neal, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and now Luka Doncic, yeah, this is worth it. And so you brought me to my point. My overall point here is that David Stern said, nah, this ain't worth it. It's going to damage our credibility. I'm going to veto this trade.
Well,
and that's exactly what Adam Silver should have done here. This trade is too lopsided. It's unfair. It's going to piss off Dallas Mavericks fans. It's going to make this league look scripted and corrupt. Hey, guys, you got to sweeten up this trade. This doesn't pass the smell test.
Oh, so this trade is going to make people think that this league is scripted and corrupted. Just this. This is the tipping point. Get right here. What happened on February 1st, 2025. Jason, you're leaving something out about Chris Paul. He wasn't just 6'2". He's also like an 11-time All-Star Hall of Famer, probably among the top, 5 or 6 point guards of all time. He was a little bit better than that. He wasn't just Terry Porter. Give me a break. The other thing is, some of these other moves, LeBron James coming to the Lakers. Jason, you do realize the Lakers were about the 4th team he's been on, right? Look, it's obvious that he wanted to come to our city for business reasons and other agendas. But to make it sound like that there was this whole movement to have him become a Laker, well, if that was the case, it would have happened really a lot sooner than he did. Okay? So the other thing is, I don't know if we want to get into that, but I don't know if Luka Doncic is really worth the hassle. That's what and again, I'll let you know what I think about him later, but I'm not exactly sure we're getting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or a Shaq O'Neal, to be quite frank with you. I really don't.
For a point that I'm going to unpack a little bit later, it's irrelevant whether he's worth it or not. Now, we can have that discussion right now in terms of, let's say he's not worth it. You still don't make this trade. The Dallas Mavericks still don't make this trade. The guy's a 5-time first-team All-NBA player. He's one of the 3 or 4 best players in the league. You don't trade him to one single team. You offer him up to the league and see if you can get a Herschel Walker type deal. You try to get a bunch of draft picks if you're really building your franchise. Again, this is why I make the argument like, this undermines the credibility of the league. The Dallas Mavericks clearly aren't really concerned about the future of their franchise. Them and the league seem most concerned about, hey, we need a big show in Los Angeles.
Okay, well, I have a question. Let's say you trade him, and let's say it was Portland or Cleveland or Minnesota that offers him the Herschel Walker trade, right? That equivalent. There's almost no guarantee he would re-sign with those teams. There's no franchise in the world that's going to give up that much to get a rental. Okay, and if it was just about the big markets, how come New York can't ever get these guys? Isn't New York kind of important? Isn't that a big media market? I don't get this, but again, you have to understand, Luka is only there are certain players that are only going to stay long-term with certain teams.
Steve, this isn't a question about market. It's a question about, as it relates to the East Coast, most people believe Boston. That's the New York of the NBA. That Red Auerbach and what he and Bill Russell put together made Boston the most important team on the East Coast. And the NBA, some people would argue, favors the Boston Celtics because of that. You know, look, Larry Bird ending up on the Celtics, trading for Robert Parrish and somehow getting the third pick, which turns into Kevin McHale, that's a little sketchy as well. Boston handles the easy. Well, some people would argue that. My memory, I can't go all the way back that far in terms of where I felt on that. But again, as it relates to Magic Johnson ending up with the Lakers and Larry Bird ending up with Boston, I just don't think that's a coincidence. I just don't think that. And so the NBA takes care of the Lakers and Boston, and they don't really concern themselves with New York because that Boston legacy had already been built. And so in order to maintain this East Coast, West Coast balance, it's about the Boston Celtics. It's not about the New York Knicks. Just don't have the history to build around. And so that's why they don't hand. And oh, my God, hold it. Oh, my God, you just reminded me. I'm so glad you reminded me. Let's don't kid ourselves and pretend like the NBA has never taken care of the New York Knicks. I'm an Indiana Pacer fan that got stuck with Steve Stepanovich rather than Patrick Ewing because of the frozen, bent envelope. You're old enough to remember that?
Oh, God. I want to call you Black Oliver Stone. Good grief. I'm expecting a third bullet from the grassy knoll this show. Couple things here. The ingenuity of Red Auerbach and Jerry West is really what drove all of this. The Magic Johnson draft came down to a coin flip, and the Bulls called heads, and I think it went tails, and they got David Greenwood. Magic Johnson became a Laker. Now, as it related to Larry Bird, again, the foresight of Red Auerbach, he actually drafted him as a junior eligible. Not a lot of teams were willing to wait 1 year to let Larry Bird play his last season at Indiana State. And Red Auerbach had one of the great lines of all time. He says, do you know how quickly 1 year can go? That worked out pretty good. It's not like Larry Bird. I think Larry Bird was a top 10 pick. I'm not so sure he was a top 3 pick. And then when it came to James Worthy, when the Lakers got the number 1 pick after winning a championship, how did they get him? Easy. They fleeced the Cleveland Cavaliers and Ted Stepien. And then the NBA actually put in a rule called the Ted Stepien rule about trading away draft choices and doing all that stuff. Again, are we going to reward teams for having the intelligence in a good front office, or are we just going to chalk everything up to some sort of conspiracy theory? Anything? Whitlock? Bueller? So again, I guess I got a freestyle. You got anything to say, or I just froze you, didn't I? I just froze you with my knowledge. I know I left you speechless. It's what I do. It's what I do. It's what I do. Whitlock, you want to come back to us? I know I've made you tap out. This is not the MMA. Get over here. You're half the show. I still need you. Come on, give me a break. Oh, he's having mic issues. Oh my God, how convenient is this? But again, the Lakers got Doncic. You know what? As a Laker fan in recess, I'm kind of intrigued, but this is the reality. I think he's a horrible defensive player. He got completely exposed in the NBA Finals. And can we give Anthony Davis a little bit of credit? He's actually a future Hall of Famer. And most of the times when you do these trades for superstars at their peak, generally you get a lot of flotsam and jetsam and you get pieces. I still remember the Suns. They got Tim Perry, Andrew Lang, and a pretty good player in Jeff Hornacek, to be fair. But generally, these trades are basically very, very one-sided. I would actually surmise Anthony Davis defensively leaves a gaping hole with what is already a bad Laker defensive team. And guess what? I don't think Dallas is going to necessarily fall off the face of the
Steve.
earth. Yes. Well, finally, you're back.
You just finally earned your. My mic fell out of my pocket, or
Lucky us. Lucky
hat
us.
fell out of my pocket, and now we couldn't get any of these other mics to turn on. I so apologize. And
you should.
Let me,
You should.
and I know I've dirtied up the show. Let me take care of a little business since we can reset the conversation. I'm so sorry to the audience. Stick with us. I want to talk to you guys about Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. Prize Picks is also giving away a free pick for the big game, where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw 1 yard to win. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Now let's see what Mama Whitlock is picking. Mama Whitlock.
What's your lineup? Mama Whitlock. What's your lineup? Pick more, pick less. Run your game, you gotta be fearless. Lock it in. Mama Whitlock. What's your lineup? Prize Picks.
All right, you guys know she's a huge football fan and a huge gambling fan. So let's see what she's doing for Super Bowl Sunday. Saquon Barkley. She's going less than 115 and a half rushing yards. Saquon Barkley, less than 115. That's a gutsy pick by my mom there. I don't know how I feel about it. I gotta give that some more thought. Travis Kelce, more than 61 and a half receiving yards. I like that pick. This could be Travis Kelce's final game before he proposes to Taylor Swift. Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts combined, more than 465 and a half passing yards. I think that's safe. I like that pick. Anyway, download the app today. Use the promo code Fearless to get a $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, use promo code Fearless to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Steve, let me refresh, and I'm sorry we had the problem with my microphone. I got distracted. We were trying to try all these other mics. Steve,
That was the best 3 minutes this show ever
reset your
had.
last. I know. Reset your last point so I can tell you why you're wrong.
Well, here's the other thing. I don't think this is a sure thing for the Lakers. Doncic is incredibly productive. I will not take that away. And I saw a tweet that said he's at the same age as Kobe Bean Bryant in 2004 and Michael Jeffrey Jordan in 1989. And I'm like, ooh, wait a minute. Okay, but here's the problem. I saw a video yesterday. I think it was from AM Hoops. They do a great job over there covering the association. And he talked about the increasing weight of Doncic. Doncic, when he came to the league, was 230, and they put up a shot of him this year where he's about 270. He looks like an after and before shot of a diet pill. I am not so sure he's the guy that you give the keys to a franchise with if you want to go all the way. I don't like his work ethic and his defense. He's an absolute sieve.
He's definitely bad on defense. I do think at age 25 and playing with LeBron James and having just been given away by the Dallas Mavericks, I do think we're about to see the best of Luka Doncic. I don't think he's Zion Williamson. I just think he's a guy that comes from a slightly different culture, but now being connected to LeBron James, the Lakers having been kind of taking a dump on in terms of the Mavericks turning their back on him, I think he's going to be motivated. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. And so I think they're going to get the best of Luka Doncic, not a declining asset. I think this is going to work well for the Los Angeles Lakers. I disagree with you there. Now, I'm about to throw a curveball. I said we would go in a slightly different order, but I want to stick with this credibility issue as it relates to all of sports, not just the NBA. So I'm moving things around a little bit, but I think it's important because it's to my overall point and theme about what's going on in the sports world. The entire credibility of the sports world is in jeopardy. Let's look at what we're headed towards as it relates to the Super Bowl and the entire conversation about the Super Bowl. It's about officiating. It's about, hey, are they favoring the Kansas City Chiefs? It's about how much influence do referees have over the final outcome, the point spread, the entire thing. Hey, cut Steve's mic again for me for this because it's going to take me a second here. And so that is the number one issue facing the biggest platform, the biggest television event every year. 100 million people are going to be watching the Super Bowl, and the conversation is going to be about officiating. The credibility of all sports is on the line. I want to play you this clip of Troy, and it's funny. We just did a Prize Picks commercial, but I got to keep it real. Again, we're part of the issue as well. We accept money from Prize Picks, but I want to play you this clip from Troy Aikman talking about what the NFL needs to do to address the officiating crisis. They can't just bury their head and pretend like sports fans aren't talking about this and aren't concerned about this. Let's play Troy Aikman.
Important. I know the officials have they have a tough job. You know, I mean, the scrutiny that they're under, as we've gotten more advanced with instant replay, those guys, it seems, have become more and more scrutinized. And the game has not become less controversial. The game's become more controversial. And but then I just think that we are at a point, and this is tipped a little bit because the league is in partners with a number of these gambling services. So here you are promoting gambling. People are gambling more than they ever have before. And those types of calls there's a lot at stake regardless, but especially when you're considering there's a lot of money that's changing hands with these calls as well. So I think that we owe it to the fans that we get it right. And I think we're at a point in time where we can get it more right. So that was really my position, and just trying to lean on the NFL and say, hey, you know, we've got to fix this. We've got to address it in the offseason.
Already had their officiating crisis with Tim Donaghy. They've already had their officiating crisis with the Sacramento Kings and I believe the Los Angeles Lakers, the Western Conference Finals years ago that everybody believes was rigged. Now it's moved over into the NFL, where all the conversation is about the officials and controversial officiating. And what's really behind this? Is it gambling? Is it favoring the Chiefs and Taylor Swift? Is it all about TV ratings? This is the conversation that ordinary sports fans are having constantly. The credibility of professional sports are on the line. Let me give you how Major League Baseball plays into this. Let's look at what the Los Angeles Dodgers have done this offseason. I believe their budget for this year, player salaries, $413 million. $413 million. The New York Yankees are second at $285 million. The New York Mets, $285 million. Philadelphia, $283 million. Toronto, Blue Jays at $241 million. Look at that disparity. This is like, this isn't what, and baseball's always had they don't share revenue the way the NFL does, or they don't have salary caps the way the NFL and the NBA have. They've always had this disparity going on in professional baseball, but never to this amount. Let me go back. Give me the list of these from Shohei Ohtani to Mookie. Shohei Ohtani, $6,800 million they're on the hook for. Mookie Betts, $115 million. Blake Snell, $66 million. Freddie Freeman, $57 million. Will Smith, $50 million. Tommy Edman, $25 million. Some dude named Hernandez, Teoscar Hernandez, $23.5 million. Tanner Scott, $21 million. It's unbelievable the money the Dodgers are spending. This throws off the competitive balance. This isn't sport. Major League Baseball fans, and we had this in Kansas City years ago. They did a protest in Kansas City because I was at the radio station. This 1998, 99, 2000, somewhere in there. We were at the radio station 810 WHB, and we did some share the wealth protest about the Yankees and the financial disparities in Major League Baseball. I was like, man, we can't compete under this system where the Yankees get to spend this much. This is now becoming more and more prevalent. That there's the Dodgers playing one brand of Major League Baseball by one set of rules, and everybody else playing by another set of rules. Now, let me get to my overall biggest point of all this. I was this weekend, or not yesterday, today, this morning, I stumbled across someone with a real explanation of what's going on with the Dallas Mavericks. And it was a mind-blowing explanation. I had heard Bill Simmons on his podcast this weekend hint about like, hey, there's a gambling angle to this, and that Las Vegas is somehow involved in what's going on with the Dallas Mavericks. He just hinted at it, and they kept it moving. I'm not criticizing Bill Simmons. At some point, I'm going to talk about the media angle on this, but not right now. I want to read you, I think the guy's name is Christopher Kratovil, Kratovil. Listen to his explanation of this and tell me if it doesn't make sense, because none of this makes sense from a basketball standpoint in my mind. You cannot justify this from a basketball standpoint. Guy writes, and this is a little bit long, but give me a break or stick with me here because it's well worth understanding what this guy is talking about. As a 6-year-old boy, I watched the first ever Mavericks game with my late dad on October 11th, 1980. The Mavs beat the Spurs, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, I have a theory as to what's really going on here. Premise 1. The Mavs trading Luka, a 25-year-old, one of the top 3 players in the world, to the Lakers in return for a broken down 31-year, 32-year-old Anthony Street Clothes Davis makes no sense as a basketball move. Virtually no one disputes this, so there must be a non-basketball explanation for what is going on here. Premise 2. The Mavs' new Miriam Adelson Dumont ownership group has no real interest in basketball, and they have said as much. To the Adelsons, the Mavs are just a means to an end, which is opening up the largest untapped gambling market in the country, Texas. A destination resort casino in DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth, with the new Mavs arena in it is their frequently stated goal. So I believe in 2022 or 2023, Adelson buys the Mavericks from Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban, longtime owner of the Mavericks. He's been embarrassed and shamed over a sex scandal and a environment within the Dallas Mavericks that's, looks really bad. He looks like he's running Harvey Weinstein's basketball organization. He gets shamed. He sells 75%, I believe, of his stake in the Mavericks to Adelson. He's still a minority owner. Cuban, hardcore basketball fan. Miriam Adelson, not a hardcore basketball fan. She has other interests. This is me talking, not telling you what this kid is saying or what this person is saying. He's an adult. He's a 6-year-old. He said he watched his first ever game in 1980. Anyway, premise number 3. The Adelson push to change Texas law to allow their Mavs-centered destination casino resort is going badly in Austin. Again, despite hiring virtually every lobbyist in Austin, Texas, their company, Sands Casino, Miriam Adelson, she made her fortune, or her husband made his fortune by running the Sands Casino, is not getting a bill through the Texas legislature this season. So another loss for gambling in Texas, and it will be 2 more years before the next legislative session. Premise 4, the Adelsons need more leverage to get a gambling bill through the Texas legislature. But they already donate more to Texas politicians than literally anyone else, and they employ dozens of good lobbyists. So where the carrot has failed, they need a stick. That stick is the threat to move the Mavs to Vegas unless they get what they want. Premise 5. As of 24 hours ago, the threat to move the Mavs to Vegas was laughable. The Mavs just made a trip to the NBA Finals and were led by a 25-year-old generational superstar. They landed a major free agent, Klay Thompson. In the offseason, they were beloved in Dallas-Fort Worth, the 4th largest media market in the United States. Teams riding high don't move. Premise 6. If their goal is to open a destination casino resort centered on a new arena, the Adelsons are better off with the Mavs being bad, unpopular, and unprofitable. This would make viable their threat to move to Vegas unless the Texas legislature legalizes their Venetian Dallas casino arena plan. Premise 7, the NBA would not allow a healthy franchise to abandon the 4th largest media market in Dallas or in the U.S., but if local support for the Mavs has dried up, the aging American Airlines Center is full of empty seats, the political will to build a new arena has collapsed, and the promise of a golden new market in Vegas beckons. Ask fans of the Seattle Supersonics if the NBA would block a Mavs to Vegas. Premise 8, by giving away Luka in return for Anthony Day-to-Day Davis, the Mavs went from being a top-tier NBA team for many years to come to who knows what now. The combination of AD, Klay, and Kai is the 2018 NBA All-Star team. But it's unfortunately 2025. The reality is the Mavs will be bad soon, and they don't have the draft capital to change their trajectory. Premise 9, but even worse for the Mavs franchise is that day one fans like me feel betrayed and heartsick. I have never seen a fan base so angry. Who is going to buy season tickets now, watch games on TV, buy and wear merchandise? The Mavericks are already down 700K followers on Instagram since they ran Luka out of town. I can relate to this. If I were still back in Indiana and a super hardcore Pacer fan the way that I was, if they had given away one of the 2 or 3 best players in the league, a guy that Dallas fans have invested 7 years in, and you have one of the 2 or 3, and you just give him away for an old aging player, I would swear off the Pacers, lead a boycott of the Pacers. I would be irate, never support the Pacers again, feel totally betrayed. This is what's happening in Dallas. They're down 700K in Instagram followers. I know that's the Matrix and all that other stuff, but people in Dallas are upset. Who wants that? Calls this premise number 11, but I believe it's premise number 10. He just lost count. The Adelsons didn't trade Luka to the Lakers for old unibrow Davis. They traded Luka for a gun they can hold to the head of the Texas legislature. Authorize our Mavs-centered casino or we're off to Vegas, baby, and the NBA won't say no. Premise number 12, the Adelsons will get their Mavs-centered casino one or another. Plan A is the new Venetian Dallas, but if the Texas legislature continues to say no, then Plan B is the Vegas Mavericks, and the unhealthy nature of the post-Luka Mavs makes Plan B viable. Premise 13, and oh yeah, a nice side benefit of this gambling-driven plan is that the NBA's flagship franchise, the Lakers, is reinvigorated with one of the top 3 players on the planet, like Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, and Shaq before Luka. The Lakers magically have a new superstar. Premise 14, that Nico admits that he talked only to the Lakers about trading Luka, reveals that this was not a basketball-driven transaction. Why not get 5 first-round draft picks for Luka? Because the Adelsons need the Mavs to stink and be hopeless by 2027 and the Texas legislative session. Final premise. So there you have it. The Adelsons get their leverage and will have their new destination resort casino centered on a new Mavs arena in the late 2020s or early 2030s in Dallas, or Plan B, Vegas. The NBA gets their marquee franchise rebuild in Los Angeles. The Lakers get their successor to LeBron, and Kobe will be good for the next for LeBron and Kobe, and will be good for the next decade. Mavs and Dallas-Fort Worth fans get screwed. Whew. That's a lot, but it blew my mind when I read that, and it makes more sense than anything else. Steve, know you've been waiting patiently. Your thoughts on the gambling theory?
Yeah, I see it. I'm going to tie it all in. I saw this firsthand. The premise about tanking so badly that you force your way out, I actually saw it firsthand. I was a diehard Los Angeles Rams when they were in Anaheim, Rams fan as a kid in the 80s. And it all really began when they traded Eric Dickerson because they wouldn't pay him. He had a couple holdouts. And then finally one day he's on his way to Indianapolis, and I don't think that franchise was ever the same. And then I got the distinct feeling by the early 90s, they were trying to not be good. And by 94, it was their last year. In 95, they're in St. Louis, and they had completely depressed the fan base, which included me. And Jason, there's actually a template for this in Hollywood. Remember that all-time great baseball movie, Major League, where that lady takes over the moribund Cleveland Indians and everyone's saying, oh my God, they're terrible. And he had these Japanese groundskeepers who said they're still shitty. Great line. And they put together a bunch of parts. And the lady, I think her name was Rachel Martin. She was actually trying to lose to a point where they could move the team, I think, to Florida, and they ended up somehow winning the pennant. So I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. We've seen this. I've seen this in Hollywood. I've seen this in real life. That explanation from that writer, it is not the craziest theory. And you know what? I actually buy into a lot of it.
Wow. I love your Major League, the movie Major League. I love that analogy. You, particularly with the female ownership. And
Yeah.
look, so Miriam Adelson. Yeah, hold on. Wow, that with the Los Angeles Rams, female ownership. And so here you have Miriam Adelson, and you have Jeannie Buss. Jeannie Buss gets what she wants.
Oh my God.
Now you have Miriam Adelson getting what she wants. And let me tell you who's waiting in the wings. Who's waiting in the wings for all this. Because once Miriam Adelson gets her casino or moves the team to Las Vegas, I guarantee you Mark Cuban reemerges as majority owner. He doesn't want to be the bad guy in getting rid of Luka and burning up his name and credibility in Dallas. He gets to blame this on Adelson. He gets to blame this on Nico Harrison. But once this is all finished, I guarantee you, because Mark Cuban's the only guy that really cares about basketball as it relates in between him and the Adelsons. The Adelsons just want a casino. They want to expand gambling into Texas more. Wow, the Major League movie and bringing Georgia Frontiere into this. Holy cow, this makes so much sense. And so, Steve, we're living in an era where most of the public realizes, hey, don't trust what the mainstream corporate media tells you. Look deeper. And that's why I keep saying, like, the credibility of professional sports has never been lower and never been in more jeopardy of collapse when you just start looking, what's the conversation we're going to have about the Super Bowl? What's the conversation we're going to have about Major League Baseball this year? What's the conversation we're going to have about the NBA? Everybody can see hey man, this gambling thing has gotten out of control. None of this is about competition. None of this is about fairness. None of the people involved really care about sports. They certainly don't care about fans. How long are fans going to continue to eat this crap?
Well, I think they do it because out of habit. I think guys like you and me, as much as we rail out against it, we've done it for so long, and it is what we talk about. We almost have to. I think a lot of other fans wouldn't know what to do. But Jason, let me give you a recent example of this actually happening with a franchise leaving a beloved fan base in a city they've been ensconced in for several decades to make that move over to Las Vegas. At least that's the plan. Oakland Athletics. There is no doubt the more you study that situation, what they did to that city and to those people was wrong. They had no intentions of ever really staying in a city where they are closely identified with. The Raiders already moved out, and now they're playing a bunch of neutral site games at Allegiant Field. And the Athletics, the last 4 or 5 years, despite overtures from other ownership groups, they basically decided it doesn't matter who owns it. We want to be in Viva Las Vegas. But it is interesting. We've seen this play out in Hollywood. We've seen it play out in real life. I'm just telling you, that guy kind of nailed it on certain things. Be so bad that there is apathy that it makes leaving earlier. I mean, this would not be like Bob Irsay getting a bunch of those Mayflower trucks in the middle of the night and hightailing it to Indianapolis. I think the new strategy is depress your fan base to a point they actually open up the gates and hope that you leave.
Let me play this clip of you from Mark Cuban a while back. It's just 30 seconds, but it's about him being a tiny bit uncomfortable pushing for what they clearly are pushing for now. Let's play SOT number 7.
You know, I talked about being the tech guy and the media guy, having an edge when I first came in. Like I knew nobody else did, so I always had an edge. But so what's happening now, you saw it with Golden State, now with Boston, build all around the arena, and the arena becomes a central point for some bigger real estate development. I don't know shit about that. And so for me to say, okay, I'm going to put up $1 billion, even if I had to borrow it or whatever, and bring in a partner to run that for me, that's a big risk. 100 people will come in and say, I'll do it for you and I know what I'm doing. But I just didn't want to be in that position of, not knowing and being able to control my own destiny.
So this is Mark Cuban justifying selling the team several years ago because, hey, this is outside my expertise, what they have planned. And it's already happening in other NBA cities. And I'm just Miriam Adelson doesn't care about basketball. She wants this gambling thing. Once she gets it, watch. Mark Cuban will return as the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He's done this temporarily and said, hey, this is the way the NBA is going. I'm going to step back for a while. You guys do what you need to do. Your name's going to be mud here in the Dallas area. And then I'll come back as the conquering hero at another point. I'm going to give you this Nico Harrison, who's running the Mavericks. He worked at Nike for a long time, I think 19 years. His claim to fame was he was tight with Kobe Bryant, and he was one of Kobe Bryant's handlers. But his real claim to fame at Nike was blowing their recruitment of Steph Curry. They say that he called Steph Seth in part of their recruitment pitch, and that he aired a video intended for Kevin Durant in their pitch for Steph Curry. And it's one of the most embarrassing things that ever happened at Nike. This is the guy that gets installed as president and general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. And I say, hey, look, maybe the guy is a genius and he just had an off day and he made some mistakes and he was hungover. Who knows? But he's the perfect kind of guy to get, because he's running the Dallas Mavericks. His career had been 19 years at Nike. Now all of a sudden he's president GM of the Dallas Mavericks. He's the perfect kind of guy that you install to oversee the demolition of your franchise, he's disposable. And once again, Mark Cuban can return as the conquering hero and put real basketball people. We lost our way, and now I'm the hero coming back to resave the Dallas Mavericks.
Jason, didn't they have a woman as their president also? And
Yep.
they tried to make that into some groundbreaking thing. So it's evident
Yep.
that the DEI Mavericks went down a certain direction. But yeah, I mean, the timing would be good for Mark Cuban, given the fact his days as a Democratic shill are over and his political aspirations went down the tube on the night of November 5th. So it does make sense, although, again, I don't know where Mark Cuban is at this stage of his life. But I hadn't actually heard that Dallas was in any threat to move over a casino. I don't really keep up with the day-to-day of the association anymore. And what a 180 we've done, Jason. I remember growing up when we were much younger, it used to be taboo to associate gambling to professional sports. I mean, this is before we were grown up. We weren't probably even born yet. I remember when Paul Hornung and Joe Namath, they were suspended or they faced discipline from Pete Rozelle because they associated with certain people. And I think Hornung was the one that was suspended. Joe Namath actually had ownership of a bar in New York City. And the league said, you need to sell off your interest because gamblers go in there. And I can still remember the early days when I remember NFL Today. Jimmy the Greek would never actually talk about the point spread, but he'd always say, I like this team by 4. And the point spread would always be like 3 or 5. So nowadays they run ads on the whole thing. I don't know. Mark Cuban, to me, is he just that cool, quirky guy that ran a tech company that was a real basketball fan? And he was the everyman and the every fan that just wanted to see his team. I'm not even so sure he's that guy anymore, though, Jason.
Well, look, I think Mark Cuban's on the record somewhere saying that he would get a divorce before trading Luka Doncic. And so Mark Cuban is a nutty basketball fan. He was the most intense, and probably, you know, when Jerry Buss passed away, what owner was more the face of the NBA than Mark Cuban? And I think he enjoyed that. I don't think there's anybody that could even compare. This would be like Al Davis selling the Raiders or Jerry Jones selling the Cowboys. There has to be a bigger agenda. And again, there's a reason why he kept a minority stake. I don't think he's done with the Dallas Mavericks. The other thing, Steve, I do think this threat to move to Vegas is real. Look, Vegas has hockey. It has the NFL. Major League Baseball seems to be on the way. Why wouldn't they want the NBA? This makes so much sense, and the expansion of gambling. It's like they want to turn everywhere in America into Las Vegas, and I don't think I kind of liked Vegas being tucked away in the only place. You really went to go gamble and do that other stuff. We need limits on these types of vices, and we're taking all the limits off. Everything's now just a cell phone click away, and now we're just gonna make it easier just to the arenas and stadiums where you play. There will be casino and opportunities to bet right there. And people are evaluating these sports and looking at the officiating and looking at everything and going, hey man, is this all just a work? Is this all just to please Vegas? And you got, again, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks makes her money through the Sands Casino Company. She has a direct relationship with the results of the game and how it affects her gambling. This seems crazy, and it seems like at some point the public is going to say enough is enough. But again, it's like gambling and porn. They're the crack cocaine and heroin of this era we live in. These gambling and porn are the two drugs that, I guess they want us all addicted to.
when you look at most games, I don't think a lot of people have interest unless it's your home market or a team you grew up following or rooting or you're a fan, right? But when you start putting in props over-unders on yards, receptions, touchdowns, all of a sudden that game becomes much more entertaining. So now the question becomes, are we watching for the game or are we watching strictly because we gambled on it? I'm on a couple group chats on Twitter with a lot of people that I've known well. And basically, I would say at least half those messages are about prop bets for that day. And I don't even think these people care about the results. So, look, this has been a slippery slope. They've gone all in on it. And it is ironic that this is the year, or last year, that Pete Rose died. Think about how far we've come. In 1989, Pete Rose was ostensibly banned for life for putting a little money down on horses and probably baseball. Maybe that was the cardinal sin, being that he was in Major League Baseball. But when you hear more and more players now being caught up in gambling accusations, and I remember in the 90s, there was a point shaving scandal at Arizona State, involved a guard by the name of Stephen Headache Smith. I was incredibly naive. I said, wow, that probably doesn't happen all over the place. It does make you wonder, are some of these games on the up and up?
Steve, I want to pause for a second, and then we're going to transition into a conversation about the media and fans not having a voice, because I think that's a big part of this discussion as well, and it connects to this Luka Doncic thing. It's just like, who represents the voice of the fans? But before we do that, I want to talk to you guys about I got to travel this week. I got to head down to Florida for a day or two. So that means we need to play Listen or Lose on Wednesday this week, not on Friday, because I'll be traveling. So if you want a chance to win $100 in Bitcoin from the Fold app, you need to sign up for the Fold app at foldapp.com/Whitlock, and you need to email Butter at lolonfearless@gmail.com and say you want to be a contestant. We will play the game on Wednesday this week, short week. I'm going to make Butter toughen up the questions, or I'm going to help Butter toughen up the questions. It's been great having the guys win, but everybody got all the questions right last week. We're going to toughen it up. We're going to play on Wednesday, a special edition. This is normally on Fridays, but we're going to play on Wednesday, Listen or Lose. Download the Fold app, foldapp.com/Whitlock, foldapp.com/Whitlock. That's step one. Then email Butter at lolonfearless@gmail.com. It's a great game. It's a way for you to acquire some Bitcoin. I'm doing it. You can do it. All you got to do is listen, answer some trivia questions, beat two other guys. You win Bitcoin. Back to Steve Kim. Steve, I want to... I spent this weekend, Sunday, digesting all this information and looking for information on Luka Doncic. Did some again this morning. And the number one thing I thought about was, hey, there's nobody that's really evaluating this from the fan perspective, from, hey, what does this say about the fan experience? The Dallas Mavericks fans have invested 7 years in Luka Doncic. He gets traded for no reason. There's this credible information, suspicion that, hey, what keeps going on with the Los Angeles Lakers that they keep getting gifted all-time great players? And people are like, oh, no, if you talk about that, that's a conspiracy theory. If you talk about the gambling angle, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. All you're supposed to do is accept the fact that one of the 2 or 3 best players in the NBA gets traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for a 31-year-old, injury-prone, really good player, but he's 31 years old. He's injury-prone. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, he's only played 70-plus games in one season. And you're not supposed to think anything because, oh, you don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist. Well, this is what fans do, and this is what journalists do. They sniff out all the different angles and they discuss them, they investigate them. But because everybody is a partner with the gambling companies, everybody is access controlled. Oh my God, if I talk about that, Adam Silver and his crew may not return my text message. He may not do an interview with me. NBA owner Mark Cuban may be mad with me. Miriam Adelson may be mad with me. Nico Harrison may not provide me information. It's access and information obsessed media. No one sits around and just thinks about, hey, I got to serve the fan and I got to give the fans the information that they want, need, desire. That's my job as a media person. No one does that. And so there's virtually, again, I said, I watched Bill Simmons and I enjoyed his podcast. They made brief mention of the gambling aspect of this. And they made brief mention of the Los Angeles Lakers. Why do they keep receiving gifts? But they didn't go down, and I'm not calling out Bill Simmons because I'm really calling ESPN and all the other places that all these other, even, it's just like even podcasters are concerned about access and info. And so you can't have the real discussion about what's going on and what people are really interested in. It disappoints me. It frustrates me. It's just another example of how the media is not improving. We got more podcasts than ever, and we got even less people talking about what fans are really interested in. It's like, what's going on with professional sports? None of this is about the fans. This is very frustrating to me.
Jason, what's the difference between a conspiracy theorist and someone who's correct? About 6 months. Honestly, let's just be honest about that. I mean, you are right. It is about the access. And a lot of these NBA writers and media members, they feel as though there's an obligation to be nice and to agree, whether it's the social justice agendas that they had to pretend that they cared about and agreed with about 3-4 years ago. It's all about making sure that they have their place at the scrum or the occasional interview, getting information from agents. So really, that's why you need strong columnists. And I'm going to bring his name up again. A guy like Peter Vesey was a thorn in the side to a lot of people. And I'm sure there was like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of these guys back then, but they were hard-nosed reporters. They were smart asses. They were incredibly clever, and they had balls. They have clipped the balls, for lack of a better term, on a lot of these individuals who just now want to be, as Kwame Brown would say, the get along to go along gang. I mean, Jason, last week I was very saddened to learn that one of my old colleagues from Max Boxing during my much younger days, Michael Katz, the dean of boxing writers, had passed away. This was a guy that spoke against power and powerful people, and he got blackballed a couple times. He got boycotted. He wouldn't get access. And you know what, Jason? He didn't care. In fact, he was emboldened by it. And I've learned the older I get, you know what my power is? I don't want access. I'm just going to say what I say. And if you ban me, you don't give me the credentials, guess what? My life goes on. It's less traveling for me. But a lot of these media members now are so tied in and are really reliant on being around the game, the industry, and the people in it, that they effectively have to make deals about who am I a mouthpiece for, who am I going to carry water for, who can I be somewhat tough on, but I can't be too hard on them. It is a game. It's a delicate balance that a lot of people play. Where have you gone, Peter Vesey?
Well, let's say you are ESPN, and can you really do a story and have people on air talking about, hey, does gambling have too much influence over professional sports?
No.
Can you do that at ESPN?
No.
And so you can't let a Peter Vesey on the air. You can't let anybody that would have this conversation on the air.
Jason, that's why I always thought when people said, the NBA on TNT, that whole crew, they need to move to ESPN. And I said, like hell they do. Like hell they do. As soon as they do that, it's the end of the show. The greatest part of that show, and specifically Charles Barkley, is his unfiltered, uncensored nature. Okay, now we may not like some of the political and social stances he took when he did that show at CNN. Putting all of that aside, when it comes to basketball, I believe he was as honest and brutal a voice as possible, and it was entertaining and it was informative. But think about this. Jason McIntyre, the sidekick for Colin Cowherd, has a problem with other people who cover the NBA, guess what, being critical of it. And he said, well, the NFL, they don't, Mac, let those who actually have the guts to exercise their First Amendment rights exercise it. Just because you're gutless, don't let that virus go on to other people, because I'm actually enjoying it. Because anyone that actually thinks that there's not severe problems that are malignant within the NBA is simply lying to the public.
Let Barkley cook, I think is how I would summarize
let him be
his
a chef.
statement there.
Yeah, let him be Gordon Ramsay. Let him cook on a wok, as far as I'm concerned. Jeez.
Steve, I'm going to bring up an ancillary point to this in terms of some of the epiphanies I had just in researching and listening to people talk about this Luka Doncic trade. This doesn't connect directly. It doesn't drive the same point. This is a completely different point, but just something I noticed that because Bill Simmons' conversation with Ryan Russillo and some dude named Mahoney, and then there was a second conversation he had with another guy, I found all of this stuff far more compelling and enjoyable than anything I could remotely get on corporate legacy TV. And one of the main reasons why is because, and this epiphany just happened to me watching Bill Simmons, and I just started thinking about all these people from the podcast world, even Nightcap with Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco. The Pat McAfee show is, I think, and again, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but even the Pat McAfee show, they're not littered with Instagram models pretending to be sports experts. They're just a group of guys sitting around talking about stuff they're interested in. They're not interested in DEI. Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco aren't sitting there, hey, we're doing Nightcap, but we really need more diversity. Instead of 2 black football players, let's add a white guy, or let's add a transgender person. They're just doing what comes natural to them. Same thing with Bill Simmons and his group of mostly white guys that he likes to talk to about the NBA. It's natural, it makes sense, and again, it's not littered with Instagram models. And I'm not trying to beat up on this person, but it really hammered home to me when I saw this CBS Sports clip of some woman, I think her name is Ashley Nicole Moss maybe or whatever, but here's her analysis, or one of the great points she made about this Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis trade. Listen to this.
We just heard from Avery Johnson just a minute ago. I asked him, are the Lakers done? Are they done making moves? And he doesn't seem to think that this is the last move they're going to make. Are you on the same page with Avery here?
Absolutely, and I think that this is not the last move that the Mavericks will make either. I'd be interested if Anthony Davis is a piece that ultimately the Mavericks potentially use to try to get Jimmy Butler. You know, they weren't going to send Luka to Miami in all intensive purposes. They were probably going to require a lot more than Miami was going to be willing to give up, but maybe a swap between Anthony Davis and Jimmy Butler is more feasible.
So CBS Sports version of Joy Taylor has just recommended that basically the Dallas Mavericks should trade Luka Doncic for Jimmy Butler. 36-year-old Jimmy Butler, who's not satisfied with $50 million a year. And so it's one of, and look, she's admitted that it's a bad take and all this other stuff, but it's like, what are we doing here? Why we got to pretend like Ashley Nicole Moss or whatever her name is knows what she's talking about as it relates to the NBA? But again, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And again, that's legacy media versus independent media. It's flip Anthony Davis for Jimmy Butler. Okay, this is almost more damaging than Joy Taylor offering herself up all around the FS1 offices, but go ahead.
Oh, geez. Now, I'm going to say this to paraphrase. Where have you gone, Jackie McCallum? Remember her? Boston Globe? I think I butchered her last name. But she was good, though. Man, I liked her. Man, when she gives analysis of the NBA, the era she covered, I always feel like there is someone that was there. She was on the front line. She's a serious human being. I find her to be incredible and very knowledgeable. And the credibility is key. And you make a point about mainstream media. Jason, whatever NBA coverage that I get, whether it's in terms of the history, the nostalgia, or even the current events, like yesterday, I did some research actually. I don't really go to the legacy media. I go to websites or YouTube channels, and I know I'm missing a few. I wish I would have made a list, but Uncut Hoops, AM Hoops, our guy Scap Attack. I find these guys to be incredibly knowledgeable, very well researched, and I get it. Everyone has a bias. I find them to have much less dishonest agendas, if at all, compared to the people that we see on the major networks.
There's no question about it. Steve, if you go look at the popular podcast in almost any genre, they're not shrines to DEI. And that's why they're winning in such a major fashion and diminishing legacy media. Independent media is like, hey, Joe Rogan, he's going to do his own podcast. He's not sitting there. You know what? I need to add a woman to this or a black person to this. I just need to do me. I just need to do what's, again, Shannon Sharp, Club Shay Shay, Nightcap. Hey, just let me do me. I'm not trying to put together, we are the world, we are the children. It makes it superior when you remove DEI from the equation and do what is natural, makes sense. You're not sitting there worried about checking boxes so that you can get some promotion or bonus. Because again, in mainstream media, there are bonuses handed out for executives. Oh, if you hire this gay person, if you hire this black person, if you hire this black woman, if you put an Instagram model on every show as a host, you'll get a bonus, and maybe she'll be like Joy Taylor and you'll get a special extra bonus. It doesn't work in the podcast space, and that's one of the reasons why that genre of media is dominating the mainstream media.
There's no doubt about it. And the agendas, look, we always say to ourselves, and I hear this a lot, well, we want to make this conversation or the show like you're at the barbershop or at the bar, right? But, okay, so what you're saying without saying is we don't want to hear women's opinions. Because think about it. When you think of all the great barbershop conversations you've had, Jason, and I'm sure the black barbershops are different than the ones that I go to. There's not a lot of women there. In fact, there may have never been a woman, and they probably never chimed in if there was one. And then when you're at a bar, whether it's at Applebee's on a Friday night or Cheers on a Thursday, there's no regular red-blooded American male that seeks out a female opinion of a sport, any sport, at a bar. That's just kind of the way it is. I know it's not popular to say, but that's the bottom line. And when I cover fights, look, there are female reporters that I like. They're there all the time. We have great conversations. But the deepest, most, I would say, knowledgeable talks that I've had, that I found the funniest and oftentimes the most profane, only involve males. There is a thing called locker room humor. I know people frown upon it nowadays, but guess what, Jason? Those are the best ones.
Well, men need spaces where they can talk. Women need spaces where they can talk. And it's this whole force thing on the rest of the media. And look, there's a level of heat that comes along with talking about anything in a transparent and honest way. And so me sitting here saying that, hey, Miriam Adelson and Jeannie Buss and Georgia Franiari and the movie Major League, there's a level of heat that comes along with that. And if we had an Instagram model sitting here while we were having in that conversation, now, what do you mean? Are you saying women can't own teams? You sound sexist.
Well,
And now I got to spend 15 minutes saying, hey, pipe down. Men
Jason,
are talking.
Jason, I don't know if you've ever heard
Yeah.
this story. One of my favorite college football announcers, God rest his soul, the golden voice Ron Franklin. I mean, him and Mike Gottfried on those ESPN primetime games in the 90s, when they were on a Miami game, I felt like, okay, this is going to be good. So he got into trouble, and I think he ended up kind of leaving ESPN because of this last incident. They're at a hotel, they're talking ball. And I think one of the females tried to chime in, and Ron Franklin said, young lady, men are talking football here, okay? He got into all sorts of trouble. But Ron Franklin counted off at 5, 10. There was nothing like a good run when he was on the call. He was the best.
I'm just keeping it, because again, when that heat comes, that blowback comes, and all the women run, I got mean tweets. And the mean tweets aren't really the big deal. It's like when that executive calls or when that head of the league calls and says, hey, I don't like what you said. We don't want you having that conversation. And again, they've turned men into women as well. And so they all fold up and they all understand, well, like Adam Silver's actually in control over here at ESPN. He can get me fired or get me removed. But the women fall first because, one, they're unsure and they're standing like, hey, I know I was given this job and I know I'm really not an expert on the NFL. I'm Mina Kimes and I'm up here pretending, I'm the bearded lady at the circus who can talk football. And so they're not going to have the backbone and stand up, and they're not going to put pressure on executives. Hey, let me stand up here. All they want to stand up on, if there's some sort of sexual assault involving an athlete, then they need all the freedom they can. If there's some sort of conversation about being an ally to gays, lesbians, and transgenders, then they want to have a backbone. But as it relates to these issues, these serious issues around sports, for the most part, they're not built for it. They're not Jackie McMullen. They're not Sally Jenkins. They're not Christine Brennan. They're Instagram models that have been given jobs because they look good, and some executive can get a bonus and maybe a special bonus by hiring them. I wanted to make that point. There's one other point I want to make, Steve. It's going to take me a second to unpack. Let's take Steve off camera. There's one other thing related to this whole topic that I want to get into. And it's me patting myself on my back. It's me saying, I told you guys, and you still will not understand what I'm about to say here, but it's true. The WNBA is going to surpass the NBA in terms of domestic relevance. It's in progress right now. The NBA continues to throw its credibility away, and guess what? League isn't doing that, or I can't say what league is making all the proper steps to build up their league to be a rival to the NBA, and it's the WNBA. What the Indiana Fever have pulled off this offseason, and it starts with the exciting whites. They just added Sophie Cunningham, a real basketball player who is an Instagram model. She's a real basketball player who's an Instagram model. She is beautiful in a way that you just don't expect from female athletes. And you add Sophie Cunningham to Caitlin Clark and Lexi Hull. And you have, as much as many of us have been pissed off about Caitlin Clark kissing the ring of the Yas Queens, and I'm here to make sure black women are elevated. And trust me, she's went woke and it pisses me off, and she bowed and she kissed the ring. But I'm not going to kid myself and pretend like that a lot of America is going to find Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexi Hull the exciting whites. And there's going to be a lot of excitement in the suburbs. Moms who have daughters who are jocks, they're going to be into the exciting whites. Their daughters are going to insist that you take me to go see Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexi Hall. The ponytail brigade is about to overtake the WNBA. And if you thought there was hatred towards Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever last year, this little trio of exciting white girls is going to amp that up even more. Backed up by, and look, Sophie Cunningham can play, and she'll be a great addition, three-point shooter, off the bench, maybe starting lineup, who knows, but she'll be a great addition on the court. But it's this off-court appeal that's going to take things over the top, and I believe that's the main reason the WNBA has gotten her to the Indiana Fever. But the real substance of what the Indiana Fever have done here, and I'm not dismissing Sophie Cunningham as a basketball player, but these additions of this Natasha Howard and DeWanna Bonner, holy cow, what an upgrade on the Fever's front court. This Nylisa Smith that was their power forward last year, who really couldn't stand Caitlin Clark and just spent all her days and nights dreaming about being laid up somewhere with Dejanay Carrington, and was just, Nylisa Smith was a problem, chemistry-wise, didn't fit the culture of the Indiana Fever, and just wasn't consistent enough, effective enough a player. DeWanna Bonner has been like 4 or 5, 6-time All-Star. Averaged 15 points, 8-9 rebounds last year for the Connecticut Sun. Played for this new coach the Indiana Fever have, Stephanie White, who was the head coach of the Connecticut Sun, has a championship pedigree. This new coach the Fever have added. And then you throw in Natasha Howard, also playing the holy moly. This is a championship team that they put together around Caitlin Clark. And it's got a little Boston Celtics, Larry Bird, white girl, exciting whites type of appeal. The Indiana Fever will be the biggest story in sports come May. And it will last all the way through the summer, and their championship run, you go get them right now. They're plus 550. Before these moves they've made this offseason, I think they were plus 1,300. Here I am. Larry, we're talking about gambling, and I'm giving you gambling advice. Call me a hypocrite, but I'm just telling you, the Indiana Fever have a championship team, and based on how the WNBA and professional sports are operated, it is in the best interest of the WNBA for the Indiana Fever to make the championship and perhaps win the championship. That will put the WNBA over the top. White girl summer, exciting white summer, backed up by Aaliyah Boston at center, and these two additions, Natasha Howard and DeWanna Bonner. Holy cow. You're about to see the takeover of basketball by women here domestically. That's what is going on. This is all part, and I gotta say, I'm not comfortable with it, but I'm not going to deny that I'm going to be a witness to it. And there's a lot of people, I'm not gonna watch. I can't stand Caitlin Clark now. I would never watch the WNBA. Yes, you are. Because of the conflict. They've just basically built the Boston Celtics here. And now they got Larry Bird, and now they got Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Dennis Johnson and Danny Ainge. They got all the pieces around. Cornbread Maxwell, they got Stephanie White, a real coach. You're going to watch because of the racial conflict. There's nothing they like selling more than racial conflict in sports. The exciting whites in the WNBA, they're going to lead the WNBA. I would say between 3 and 5 years from now, WNBA is going to have more domestic relevance than the NBA, and this is the start of that process. Steve, welcome back. This is my last and final point as it relates to Luka Doncic and the credibility of the NBA. Am I right or wrong here?
mean, I'm glad my mic was turned off during that soliloquy. Here's my reaction. In the immortal words of Korean American parents all across the country, after a few too many B pluses and maybe a C, are you crazy? Really? Guy, I'm just like, come on. Are you crazy? Look, Jason, I will give you this. The exciting whites, as you like to call them, will be a story. They will be a singular story. But across the board, it's like UConn and Tennessee throughout the years when they had their dominant runs. They were very popular. In fact, they were probably more popular to a certain degree than a lot of NCAA men's basketball teams. But overall, the men's sport was still more popular, even during March Madness, especially during March Madness. Now, that particular squad in Indiana, they will be a story every time they play. But here's the reality, and it's going to cause a lot of resentment. The philosophy of grievance, as Thomas Sowell says, will come out all throughout the rest of the WNBA and the Jamel Hills of the world. They'll have their daily think pieces about how we built this league and now they get to reap the rewards, even though they built everything on quicksand and in the Everglades. Yes, I will grant you this. That one team, they will be the 98 Bulls. Absolutely. They will be a traveling road show, or as big as you can be in the WNBA. However, league to league, as much as I don't like the NBA, they will still be a more popular league than the W.
I'm projecting 3 to 5 years, and I'm projecting a massive amount of growth this season. Caitlin Clark's best games this year, I think we're drawing 2.5 million viewers. I may be out over my skis here. I think her best games this year are going to draw 3 to 4 million viewers. And once she starts doing that in regular season games, and I just want you to look at what she's already done to someone like me. And I'm telling you, I was not a women's basketball fan. But this is when Caitlin Clark, and I think they're playing 44 games this year, maybe they played 42 last year, I can't remember, they hyped it up. But when Caitlin Clark goes city to city, team to team, and I watched every game last year, and I'm probably going to watch every game this year, and I can't believe I'm saying that because I was really upset with Caitlin Clark.
Oh, God.
But it's like, this is what she did. It's like when I was like, oh, they traded for Natasha Howard. I knew who that was. Oh, they just are acquired Natasha. I don't know how they got her. They just acquired DeWanna Bonner. I knew who that was. Oh, that's Alyssa Thomas's wife or fiance that was on the Connecticut side. I knew who that was. She's introduced me to all these different players that I never would have been introduced to. I know exactly how they fit in. I can, more than any NBA, I could evaluate the Indiana Fever and their roster moves a lot more. That it's like, who's the guy that was it? Some dude named Max Christie or whatever that just got traded to the Dallas Mavericks as a part of the, I didn't even know who that was. And allegedly he was some important piece of the Los Angeles. Like, Caitlin Clark has introduced me and a lot of other people to the WNBA, and that the entire, and it's not that these guys are great players, but they're a part of a great story that the WNBA just improved. They've created Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird. And all they have is Larry Bird. But the rest of the league, you tie Asia Wilson and Angel Reese and what's the tall, Brianna Stewart and whoever else, the entire Minnesota Lynx roster, you tie all of them together and they're Magic Johnson. And so they've got Bird versus Matt. You got the exciting whites against the angry blacks. That's what the exciting whites versus the angry blacks. It's a story. That you're kidding me if you don't think people are not gonna watch this.
That comparison you just made about Buck, that is the worst thing to happen to Magic since his talk show. That Magic. Magic, I want to apologize.
I just
to
got
you.
that son. Remember that? That purse carrying
Oh
son.
wow,
of
you
his.
went
Go
there.
ahead.
You went there now.
And he's got HIV.
But did you see him giving blood though? I saw a picture of him giving blood. I was like, well, wait a minute, who's lining up for that? But anyway, back to our point. Here's the difference. Magic and Bird each had their rabid fan bases that actually really liked them. Okay, so put away the race angle, Boston, LA, the media markets, and the history of the two franchises. Magic was incredibly likable. Bird was maybe not as likable, but he was incredibly relatable. So Caitlin Clark fits the bill on both of those things. Relatable, likable fan base. Those other women you mentioned, they're just not, they don't fit they don't check any of those boxes. They're just there. Come on, Jason. They're not Magic. That's bad. You should take that one back. Either rescind that one.
Don't call them Magic, but they will play the villain role in this race war that's coming in the WNBA.
No,
and people find that irresistible.
They're a bunch of lame beers. Then. Fine. Okay. Big white guy, though. Still. All right. Bunch of lame beers. Lady lame beers.
I'm comparing the Fever to the bad boy Pistons. They're the bad girls.
Okay.
Because Caitlin Clark's got an attitude.
Okay.
And Sophie's got a bit of an attitude. And trust me, DeWanna Bonner and Natasha Howard, they definitely got attitudes. This is going to be the bad girls. This is, Caitlin Clark's Isaiah Thomas. Kelsey Mitchell is Joe Dumars. I got a whole deal on this. It's going to work.
Oh, my God.
Fever going to be, Fever, WNBA, they're going to start rivaling the NBA. You heard it here first. Steve, I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to let you go with that.
Yeah, I don't think I can take
That's all
anymore.
I got.
I think I've had my limit of this. Jeez.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. We're going to bring Shemeka Michelle on. The Grammys were last night, and a lot of things went on with the Grammys last night, including Beyonce winning Album of the Year for a country album, Carter Cowboy or Cowboy Carter or whatever. What was it? Kanye West brought his wife naked to the Grammys. Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son, wore a hat that has Cam Newton irate. From what I understand, Cam Newton has fired his stylist because Jaden Smith discovered this hat before Cam Newton. Holy cow. We got to talk about that with Shemeka Michelle. Before we do that, I want to finally tell you all the details from Roll Call 3.0. They're in. We're for those of you that aren't Fearless Mission subscribers, Blaze TV subscribers, you're going to have to wait a couple of more days because you haven't signed up. Go to fearlessmission.com, become a subscriber. I think the promo code is Fearless, and you can get $20 off your subscription. But you got to be a Fearless Mission subscriber to get first crack at Roll Call 3.0. It is on May 2nd and May 3rd, and man, do we have an all-star lineup. We got Tucker Carlson. We got Jamie Johnson's going to be singing for us on Friday at the VIP event. We got Doug Wilson coming in from Idaho. We got the rooftop pastor, Corey Brooks, coming in. We got Bishop Von McLaughlin coming in from Jacksonville, Florida. We got Mervyn Mayo singing. We got E.W. Jackson. It is amazing. May 2nd and 3rd right here in Nashville. This email goes out today to give Fearless Mission subscriber, Blaze TV subscribers, first crack at buying tickets to this event. The rest of you are going to have to wait till Wednesday. We'll release a website. I want to give you all the theme and the purpose for Roll Call 3.0. Let me read it. Roll Call 3.0 continues the mission of men encouraging each other to pursue holiness and the execution of the Great Commission by seeking alliance and fellowship with men who share our faith values and commitment to obey our Lord and Savior. This year, we will emphasize the importance of finding joy and like-mindedness in the subjugating of our own interests to the interest of God's kingdom. We have invited speakers and performers designed to inspire all of us to fulfill the law of Christ and bear one another's burdens. The world baits us to adopt allies and allocate our support based on superficial characteristics such as skin color and sexual identity. Roll call once again reminds us that our true allies are Jesus Christ and the remnant submitted to him. I cannot wait for you guys to be here. It's going to be amazing. The Friday VIP event is off the charts. Tucker Carlson and I will have a conversation that will blow your mind. Jamie Johnson, if you don't know Jamie Johnson, you need to get to know Jamie Johnson. That's Jamie with an EY. He's one of the greatest country singers of all time. He's a legend here in Nashville. Everybody in the music world, in the country music space, tips their hat to Jamie Johnson, one of the great voices. It's like if Oliver Anthony was an all-time great country singer, he'd be Jamie Johnson. You guys know who Richmond or North. Anyway, can't wait for you all to get here. Can't wait. Hope you're as excited as I am. It's going to be amazing. Thank you for letting me get that off my chest. And we'll be talking more and more about that over the next week or two. I told you I got some traveling to do this week, but we'll be on this topic all this week. Shemeka Michelle, next. The LeBron James, Adam Silver version of the NBA is such a dumpster fire that the best player in women's basketball doesn't want to be associated with the league. That's right. Caitlin Clark, the WNBA superstar, the biggest star in sports, turned down an invitation to compete against Steph Curry in a three-point shooting contest in the NBA's floundering All-Star weekend. A year ago, New York Liberty guard Sabrina Ionescu jumped at the chance to compete against Curry from beyond the arc. Had Clark accepted the same opportunity, it would be a major ratings draw for an All-Star weekend that has lost virtually all of its appeal. But Clark and her handlers smartly realized she shouldn't attach her brand to trying to resuscitate the NBA, which has turned into the Fire Festival of basketball during the LeBron James, Adam Silver era. Let me walk you through it. LeBron James entered the league in 2003, hailed as the heir to Michael Jordan's throne. After a successful 8-year run in Cleveland, James began the process of turning toxic when he took his talents to the Miami Heat as a shortcut to win championships. They decided the injury risk in the All-Star game justified a total reduction in actual effort during that game. All right, welcome back. Shemeka Butters here with us as well. We're talking about the Grammys. I want to start with Cowboy Carter winning Album of the Year. Holy cow. I know I was shocked. Country Album of the Year and Album of the Year. It won them both. It doubled up. Shemeka, have you listened to Cowboy Carter? I know I haven't. I think I saw some of it. If it's the same music she played at the Super Bowl, or what event was it she just did? Not the Super Bowl. She just did halftime of some game. Thanksgiving, maybe? Yeah, Houston, maybe Thanksgiving. If all that was all Cowboy. I didn't like or didn't think much of any of that music. If that's the album, holy cow. I asked the question, like, she's won so many Grammys. Is she bigger than Michael Jackson and Elvis Presley and Prince and Adele?
She's up there.
No, she's not. Don't say that, Butter. Anyway, Shemeka, your thoughts. Sales, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Jason, this is a joke, right? And I have to be careful because
Tina knows has been seen in my looks in my story on Instagram the last time I spoke about Beyonce. So I need to be careful that I'm plain and I'm clear when I say Cowboy Carter is trash. It's not country music. And I don't understand why anybody thinks this Black woman throwing on a blonde wig and a cowboy hat is all you need. Some of the songs I could stomach, Jason, but it is not traditional country music. But again, this is a joke, right? Because the Recording Academy boasts that since 2019 they have begun to add members so that their membership is more diverse. So everybody can clap their hands, pat themselves on the back that this is what diversity, equity, and inclusion produces. They say that they have a 63% increase in people of the voting membership that identify as people of color. They have a 37% increase in those that are women. This is what they're trying to do. So you're not going to get any type of quality as we did maybe back in the old days. We're getting now the results of DEI because Beyonce's Cowboy Carter is not true country music. This is a joke, and we saw that in 2021 when we saw the porn that they allowed Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion to give us when they performed WAP at the Grammys. So we shouldn't take this seriously, but everybody complaining, give yourself a round of applause for the diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is Beyonce winning Country Album of the Year. Foolishness.
Butter, I think your mic is good, but I want to. John Rich posted this on X this morning. Folks are asking me, how do music award shows work? Labels, publishers all have blocks of votes. They make deals with each other. You vote for mine, we'll vote for yours type thing. It has zero to do with who made the best music. Thus, Beyonce with Country Album of the Year. Nice, right? The same thing is true with the CMAs, ACMs, Billboard, etc. All work exactly the same. Last night, the Grammys outed themselves in a big way. That's your understanding?
Yeah, they're all a little different. They all operate under, some are fan voted, some are not. The Grammys actually even has a department that's called like the craft department, where over certain categories, they have their voters, but then they have, I would call them like fact checkers. They have this secondary group that comes in over like Album of the Year or some of the bigger categories, who are compiled by the Grammys to be like a panel to oversee. So there's not really this clarity. You were mentioning it earlier in sports. The credibility is shot and where everything is. I would say it's the same thing here with the Grammys and a lot of these award shows. There's not that credibility anymore about what they're doing.
If I'm a country music artist, and again, I wouldn't know this, but now that I live here in Nashville and actually know country music artists, and you just her music just doesn't, as country, it just doesn't resonate here. And if I'm a country music artist, yes, I know that the Grammys are bogus and BS, but when they're handed to some Black woman whose music has zero appeal to like country music fans, it would create some animus and it creates some bitterness. And it's like, this is what this is designed to do, is to pit. Look at what they're doing for Black artists. This, I pour my heart into this music, and they're handing out these awards to some woman who, doesn't write her own music, doesn't produce any of her own music, spends millions of dollars to have an album produced, and they just hand her this type of an award. It just seems like it would create some real justified envy and animus.
It is. The Grammys, and if you look at who else is involved and who else is nominated and who wins, it's across the board. She is such a big artist, and she garners so much attention that we focus on her. But a lot of the artists that you would say are not popular within the genre itself, but more like a Hollywood popular, or more popular because of what they bring in terms of diversity or their storyline. And so you see it all throughout the Grammys and how that's presented and who wins and who's nominated.
Yeah, I'm no expert here, but didn't Lainey Wilson have like an incredible year?
Oh yeah. Well, and Post Malone was up for a lot of these awards. And if you really see the distinction between, Post Malone comes from the pop world, you kind of consider her R&B or pop, but Beyonce, he really has adhered. You would see Post Malone out at a lot of these local honky tonks on any night down there at Losers or Winners, and the Duck Blind. I mean, he's ingratiated. He works with these songwriters. He's in this community, and I feel like Beyonce kind of just got anointed this, and it feels a little dirty. But that just like you were mentioning with the referees and gambling and the sports, I feel like the music business and these award shows carry a very similar parallel.
Shemeka, I posted a poll 8 hours ago, or 5 hours ago, I'm sorry, on my X feed. Is Beyonce a better artist than Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, Prince, Aretha Franklin, Adele, wait for it, R. Kelly? What am I missing with Beyonce? She makes some decent music, but all these Grammys, like she's the GOAT. Does Beyonce belong in the GOAT convo? Heck no, 47.4%. Heck yes, 1.9%. Most overrated ever, 46%. And she's top 5, 4%. There have been 8,000 votes cast so far. Any of those, is Beyonce Elvis, Michael, Prince, Aretha, Adele, R. Kelly? Is she on their level?
Jason, I do think Beyonce is a good entertainer if you like her type of music. She gives you a good show. She sings, she dances, she adds all of the theatrics that people, like to keep their attention. So I do think she is a good entertainer, and she's kind of well-rounded. Is she on the level of Prince, who played instruments and wrote his own music? Absolutely not. I don't even think she's on the level really of Michael Jackson if, we were to put them side by side in the same era. But
hold for one second. You threw in a qualifier there as it related to Michael Jackson. You really, I just want you to think about this. If I had to sit down, I'm on an island, and there's any of these people, I can only listen to their catalog of music in my headphones on an island. Let's take Beyonce being naked on stage and dancing out. Let's take Michael Jackson being on stage and dancing out.
Not naked.
If I gotta listen to their music, Aretha Franklin, Adele, R. Kelly, Beyonce's in this. You gonna sit and listen to Beyonce's music over and over and over again compared to these other people?
I think if you have to choose, you're not gonna choose Beyonce. Unless you're somebody from this, the current generation, they probably would choose Beyonce, because she is their Michael Jackson. She is their Prince. Like, for me, I wouldn't choose her. I would probably, rather listen to Whitney Houston over and over and over again. But for these young people, I do think they like Beyonce this much. They're paying $1,000 to go see her in concert. It's ridiculous. But, so I don't think they're the same, but I do think when you talk about the GOAT, there are young people that are paying to see her, not paying their rent, not paying their car payment, worshiping her, falling out crying, just as people in our day did over Michael Jackson and Prince or Elvis or whatever. So I can't take that away from her, that she is an entertainer. I just don't think she's on the same level with them, from my point of view, as somebody my age that actually lived through that time period. But I think that people do reverence her the exact same way that they did Prince and Michael Jackson. So for your followers, most of them are probably, in our generation that are not going to say, oh, yeah, heck yeah, Beyonce is that great. But just being honest, you ask, my daughter, she may say, oh, Beyonce is the GOAT. I do remember her going through a time period where she thought Beyonce could do no wrong. I remember saying, how is it that Beyonce doesn't get a bite? And she goes, because she's perfect. It's years ago, but that's where that generation, they see her like that. A lot of them. I know women my age that went to see Beyonce in concert. Would I ever pay that? No, unless it's $40. That's all I'm going to give you. But some of them will actually go to great lengths to see her, listen to her music, be like her. Like I said, her mom was in my IG. These people stalk her, even her own family. What did Shemeka say about Beyonce on Fearless with Jason Whitlock? Tina Knowles may show up again to see who this woman is saying Cowboy Carter is trash, but it feels dirty to butter because it is trash. It's not traditional country music. And so it's laughable to me that she would even be chosen. But again, this is why we have to get away from this DEI, because it's not about putting someone at the table that looks like you. Right? Because we keep saying, oh, we got to get a seat at the table. What we need to start making sure we're paying attention to is, hey, you share my values, you got a seat at the table. You over here, you share my values, you got a seat at the table. If we had people in the Recording Academy that actually liked good music, some of what we've been seeing over the last few years, we wouldn't see. But that's not where we are. We are in a place where you got my skin color, you can have a seat at the table. You think crazy like I do, you can have a seat at the table. And we need to get away from that.
I know that's going to get me in trouble, but I'm just trying to think of what is Beyonce's classic song?
I'll be there for you.
What's her classic song?
Put a ring on it.
Single ladies.
What's her man in the mirror? What
She
is
doesn't
it?
have
What's
it.
her hello? What's her hello?
It's her living on a prayer.
I agree.
Yeah, she doesn't have it.
Yes, so she can't make it to my island. I'm sorry. No, I'd have to put R. Kelly in shackles and handcuffs, but he could make it to my island. I might have to put shackles and handcuffs on Michael Jackson too, but he could make it to my island. Adele certainly would be on my island. Prince would be on my island. I'd keep him in a cage somewhere.
You need a prison
Adele
over there
wouldn't
on
make
your
my
island.
island. Whitney Houston, though, she would be on my island.
Whitney would make it on. We would probably
I need a
smoke
jail
crack
cell for
together.
her too.
Anyway, this is going longer than I thought. I wanted to your thoughts on Bianca, Kanye West's wife or sex slave or whatever. She showed up the red carpet at the Grammys naked. Once she takes that coat off, she's got some see-through deal on. She's naked. Kanye should be arrested, and this woman should be hospitalized. She's a sex slave, and this should be illegal in America. I know it's his wife, but he should not be allowed to fully clothed parade this woman around butt naked. This is embarrassing. It makes me regret any slight defense I ever gave of Kanye when he pretended to be some sort of Christian. This man is sick.
Jason, this is where you say this is your brain and that's your brain on Hollywood. I have completely bought into the idea that if you are groomed in Hollywood, you just really stand a very low chance of getting out with any type of common sense. Look at Kanye. He actually flew Bryson Gray to Japan. Now, Bryson signed a NDA. I didn't. He flew Bryson to Japan and actually acted as if he wanted spiritual guidance. And now look at him. This man boasted about how they have nothing on him. He can actually say and do as he please. But it looks like they came back and said, well, what about this? Because he's bought right back into the same thing. This is a man who said, Jesus walks with me, but we can't see it. Where is he? Jesus is walking as a ghost because he's invisible in Kanye's life right now. I don't know any man, and I'll say regular man, just your everyday average man, who would parade his wife around naked. But you see this from Kanye. You saw that from the guy who wanted to watch his wife sleep with other men. This is what fame does to you. It cooks your brain and take away your common sense. This is all for money. This is all for $1 and for attention. Kanye is an attention whore. And everybody gave it to him once they saw that. That was all over my timeline. But he's nothing to look up to. He has 4 children, and this is how he's parading his wife around. I don't think he would allow anybody to parade North around like that. But this is what he's doing to this woman. He's a double-minded man. He's unstable in all his ways.
And for all the people that are, hey, Whitlock, you should have seen this a long time ago. You're an idiot. You should have never bought into any credibility as relates to Kanye West. Hey, maybe you're right. It's hard for me to give up on people. One, because I know what a degenerate I used to be, not obviously on Kanye's level, but certainly a degenerate. And so it's hard for me to give up. And God can change anybody. He certainly, if you go through the Bible, there's people that have done worse than Kanye that God used to, do miracles and things like that. So, but I'm just done. I'll never take Kanye seriously again. I feel sorry for how he's brainwashed this woman. I sit there and where's her family? Does she have one? Or did they all die in some? Because they need to jump on Kanye. Anyway, I'm gonna move on because there's another group that needs to be jumped on or needs some sense knocked into them, and that's Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. And this son of theirs, Jaden Smith, showed up at the Grammys I'm sorry, there was one other point I wanted to make as it relates to Kanye, is why would the Grammys allow Kanye to walk the red carpet with his wife dressed like this? Well, do we have no standards? I mean, at all from anybody? Because if that's my red carpet, those people are arrested and they're run off. They're taken off someplace. Hey, you can't do that. That's indecent exposure. But at the Grammys, it's legalized and it's part of the deal. This is a sick, demonic organization. Final point, Jaden Smith, here he is with his sister, I believe, Willow, and Jaden Smith has a hat on that I'm sure Cam Newton must be completely irate about. Anyway, we're showing there we go. Let's get to Jay. There he is. Cam Newton has fired his stylist for him not being the first to wear this particular house hat. Your thoughts, Shemeka?
Jaden wasn't the first one to wear it either. There was some other white man that wore a similar house hat like that before. And I've been trying to figure out the purpose of it, and I just can't figure it out. I saw some people saying instead of the White House, it's the Black House. I saw that Stephen King, I think it was, had this book called The Black House, but it seemed like it was based around pedophilia to me, which then would actually make sense because we know that there's been some strange things happening in the Smith household. Allegedly, Jada, goes both ways, allegedly. So does Will, according to some of the insiders. So we know that those kids have seen a lot growing up. And I just don't think that we can expect much better from them because this is their life. They've been in Hollywood the entire time, Hollyweird. And so this is what we're going to get for them. Poor young adults because they grew up with Will and Jada.
Doesn't he look unhappy? Like, if you think
Yes.
you're going to wear that hat, wouldn't you think you would be happy, or you would be exuding the fact that you have a house on your head? Like, you would be jovial about it. But he looks unhappy. It looks like it's not his decision. He looks like Bronny James a lot of times.
He looks like an idiot. Shemeka, thank you so much. We're done here. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'll break my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be. I wanna be. I wanna be.